chance to download and read the case. Because today we're going to talk about a case. It's very important for all of us to understand what kind of question we're talking about. But before I talk about the case, I do want to talk about the class schedule for the next week and also for the final exam. The final exam is going to be on May 5th, which is a Tuesday. And I think it's going to be 4:15 to 7:15. It's on the blackboard. Okay, so if you go to the blackboard, you will see the time for the final exam. The final exam is still going to be online, and it's 3 hours. When I designed the final exam, I was actually trying to cut down the numbers of questions. So I want to make sure everyone have plenty of time to finish. Okay, so it's very important. If you cannot take a test on that day for that time, you have to let me know in advance. Okay, so I can reschedule the time for you. Or for whatever reason, say if you were cut off, lost the power, anything, you need to contact me as soon as possible. Okay, if you were interrupted during your final exam. And next week there will be no classes. Instead, I'm going to make a 1 hour 15 minutes video to go over what's going to be on the test and also the sample questions. On the blackboard, there's a folder called the test review. And for the final exam review, you are going to find a review list with a couple of sample questions. So what I wanted you to do is I wanted you to do the question on the review and then watch the video, because I will talk about the answer during the video. Yes, if you have any question about the review, you can email me, and I will also have the office hour next week. So feel free to drop in or just contact me anytime. I will try to arrange a personal Zoom meeting with you to go over the question if you have. Okay. So any questions about the exam and the review?
Online, it's showing the final exam review. It's empty. There's no file in there.
Yeah, I haven't put it yet. So okay. I will have everything ready. The question without the answer, the video, and also the question with the answer. So my suggestion is to first do it by yourself and then watch the video. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let's talk about the case. First, I want to make it very clear. What I'm going to do today is not going to tell you like what the answer is. Instead, I wanted to approach this case like a real life issue. And as any real life question, there is really no right or wrong. You may have some more optimal question and optimal solution and other solutions, but there's no right or wrong answer. Okay. So when you write up this case, I wanted to make it. I want to make this very clear to you is that there's more than one answer, and also a lot of times you may give something called we call sensitivity analysis, which means well, I may have a different scenario on a different scenario what the answer is to be. You know, I know the case is not cheap. I think you pay like $10, $15 for it, right? So I wanted to make the best out of it. Really think about it as a real life scenario. It's not just like a homework, okay? All right, so how we're going to proceed this today is we're going to have some issues, some questions. Then for some question, I may put you in something called a breakout room. What is a breakout room? It's a kind of small group. So I will just randomly assign you into a small breakout room with 2 or 3 students. Then you can have a discussion. Then I will bring you back after 1 or 2 minutes. Then we discuss what is your suggestion. So like what I said, it's really no right or wrong answers. I want you to think about yourself as the CEO. Okay, really analyze the issue we have in front of you. Okay, so I have this listed on the Excel. I wanted to use this as a starting point. So here the first question is why we look at this case. What are the issues? What are the issues? Here, I would like to actually list out a couple of person discussed in the case. Okay, so I wanted to know who they are, what are their views. So these are important because it's like a real meeting, right? You have a couple of people come and they tell you what are the problems and you're trying to address the problem. So okay, so you all have 15 minutes to look at the case. So anyone, you can unmute yourself, just tell me, who are these people? What issue they're talking about? And what are each person's view on this issue? Anyone? So I know this is basically general manager, okay? When you're writing a case, when you're writing this case, I want you to write on behalf of the general manager because Hans is the one who's going to make a decision, okay? But anyone can tell me what are the issues? What are the issues? Why are we looking at this case? Anyone, please?
So the this company, they have a lot of steel on hand, and they make steel rings for a certain machine, and they have a competition from France company that is starting to make plastic rings that cost less than the steel ones cost to make, that, but they will sell for the same price as the steel rings.
Yes, yes, excellent. Okay, so that is the issue facing the company. So you have these three officers, actually. They come, they each have their different views. So anyone can tell me who are they and where they stand on this issue. So basically the issue is now the company is making these steel rings and it's quite profitable, but now they have a competitor come trying to sell plastic ones at same price, but much more durable. Actually, you can use like 4 times longer than the steel ones, okay? So that's the issue. Now you have actually a couple of management people come, and this is a sales manager. So what are the sales manager? For the sales manager, what is sales manager's suggestion? So anyone?
He doesn't think the steel ring should be sold at all once the plastic rings are available.
Do you know when the plastic ring is available?
September, I believe.
Yes. Okay. So sales manager said they wanted to get stop selling all the steel ring. They just want to sell the plastic one because it's a better product, right? Okay. How about this Bodo? He is, let's see. What is his position? It's production manager. Oh, development engineer. Okay, so this development engineer, what are the additional information provided by him? So he came, he said, well, the plastic ring will be available by the middle of September, right? And they also talk about in the summer, there are some labor. So basically during the summer, they have kind of slack, which means they have excess capacity. And also you have excess direct labor too. Normally, they don't fire them. Instead, they pay them like 70% of regular wages, okay? now you also have this Patrick, who is from parent company, right? What is his view? His view said, hey, you have this steel inventory, right? Does not seem like have a lot of alternative use. So he wanted the company to continue to at least try their best to use all the inventory they have at hand. Okay, so this is basically the people at the meeting. Okay, at the meeting, and also where they stand on the question. Okay, so now I wanted to think about if you are the general manager. This is absolutely very important. Now, I wanted to have a brainstorm with all the managers at the meeting. Just come up with all the alternatives you can think of. Okay, here first I wanted to do is not discuss like which alternative is better. Instead, just list all the alternatives you can think of. What kind of alternative you can have? Say, are you gonna sell? You're not gonna sell? Which type of ring you gonna sell? When to sell? Or can you sell at the same time? Not only that, but also like the price, which market to sell. Any alternative you can think of. I want you guys to have a discussion. So what I'm going to do is I will put you in a small breakout room. Okay, then you have a discussion, then we're gonna come back in 2 or 3 minutes. Just really think about what are the alternatives, okay? Trying to list as many alternatives as you could, okay? Right, so please join your breakout room, okay? So please join the breakout room if you can, okay? If you have any question, please let me know. Welcome back. And what we're going to do now is we're going to think about all the alternatives we have. Okay. So now you are the general manager, and what kind of alternative you have? So anyone?
They could try and figure out a way to procure or produce the steel rings cheaper so that they can offer that at a lower price point than the plastics. And that way they could get rid of their inventory and then continue to produce plastic when they get it up and running in September.
So what do you mean they can get it cheaper? Because let's say if there's any way they could manufacture it cheaper, I'm pretty sure they already did. So whatever they have.
Well, they real world, you know, they do a large amount of business with the material company that they buy this steel from. They do large orders, and I'm sure that that steel company wouldn't like to lose that business of selling that direct material. So you have negotiating power and get them to drop their price so that they can stay in business and keep your account. And then you're able to reduce the cost of direct materials that go into each ring.
Okay, so I just wanted to really make sure I understand. So basically you said we're not going to produce plastic at all, right? We're just trying to reduce the cost of manufacturing steels. Okay,
that's one alternative, or you could do both at different price points.
Okay, you can say we're just gonna sell both with a different price. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's sell both at a different price. Okay. Any other alternatives?
I suggested to my group that you bundle the products, so you sell one plastic and one steel together, since I'm assuming that they're still can be used the same, and then you would be able to sell the metal one a little bit cheaper, eating into the profit of the plastic one, yet you would still be able to sell all of your steel rings.
Okay, so essentially kind of similar to like this one, right? You're gonna sell both, but at a different price, or you bundle it, but
yes, using bundling to make sure that you do sell them.
yes. Okay. Any other alternatives?
Sure.
Maybe
Our group. Go ahead.
No, Austin. Oh.
Yeah. So our group introduced an idea where we, up until the September date, we drop our margins to possibly even zero, just to clearance out all of our existing ring inventory. That would increases the rate at which we get rid of our inventory, so we don't end up with any leftover, just useless steel rings. And when we have plastic rings to sell and produce.
So that's what it said. It said we're not gonna sell plastic until we sell all the rings and all raw materials, right?
Yeah. So I thought they said that September was the earliest date that they could sell and produce plastic anyways.
Right.
So if that's just making sure that their inventory timeline lines up with the timeline of them being able to produce plastic. They don't need to stop selling.
Okay.
Steel.
So I want to make this clear. There are actually two things. You can only sell the rings already manufactured, or you can continue to manufacture and try to sell more. So your point is like, actually this is kind of two alternatives, right? You can say we're gonna stay off plastics, then we're still going to continue to produce. But when you produce, you also have a couple of options, like say, we're going to produce using whatever the summer labor we could use, or we can produce by using the normal, right? So this is one of the options. You are not going to sell any plastic until you get rid of all the rings and all raw materials inventory, okay? There's another alternative that's similar but slightly different is, hey, we are going to still stay out of plastic. We sell all the rings, but we get rid of inventory. So we're not going to manufacture any. Okay, so these are two actually related but separate alternatives. Okay. So anything else? Any other alternatives?
We
Can I
could look at
go ahead.
we could look at an alternative use for the rings, possibly entirely out of our sector. Like maybe we could sell them to HSN as bracelets or something.
Okay, so that's also very good. So we can say we're just gonna only sell plastic. We're not gonna sell any steel at all. Any steel we have, we're just trying to convert to find other uses for it. Okay. Okay, so now let's going back to this. For if you're gonna sell the plastic and the steel at the same time, okay? So some people said we're gonna sell it at the same time until September or until we used up all the steel rings and the inventory. So how about the market? Are you going to sell everywhere, or are you trying to stay out of France? Because you know that's where your competitor is selling the plastic rings. So that's another thing you have to think about. You're gonna sell both until all the steel rings has been converted. Where are you going to sell it? Are you going to sell in all market, or we only to sell it in France because now we have a competitor there? Okay, so that's a couple of things you have to think about. These are the alternatives. There are more alternatives, but you wanted to nail down, trying to see which are more reasonable alternatives. The reason is you have limited time to make a decision. Okay, you really have to find a couple of most possible alternatives, and then we're going to move to the next stage. So what are the next stage will be, we have to look at the incremental cost and the benefit, okay? So now I wanted to really think about here, when we talk about the cost, in this case, especially there are some of the alternatives, costs are important. Like for example, if you're going to consider we are going to sell both at a different price, or we're going to sell both at the same time, how much we should charge, and what are the costs related to each product. That's what we're trying to figure out, because when you have a breakdown on the cost, you can make a much more knowledgeable decision. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at the cost. In the case, page 3, there is a breakdown of the cost created by the cost accountant. So if you look at the case on the page 3, as in the table A, you have all variable cost, and you also have kind of allocated overhead. So I wanted to look at this and think about what kind of costs are really relevant, what are costs are not relevant. So what are the relevant costs is, if you have to make a decision now, the cost will change. What are not relevant costs, like sunk costs, that are not relevant, okay? So I wanted to look at this table A. We're going to really move to what are relevant costs, okay? So here, look at this cost. First, direct materials, direct labor. I would say these are all quite relevant costs. Why? Because they're variable. If you're gonna produce any new rings, this will increase. Next, let's take a look at overhead. There are two types of overhead. First is departmental overheads, and another one is administrative overhead. So which one is relevant? Basically, which one will change? Which one is a variable overhead one? Which one is a fixed overhead? Here, we only care about the variable overhead. Why? Because the company has excess capacity. Okay, so therefore the company can manufacture actually both rings at the same time, even in September. Therefore, we don't really care about the fixed overhead. It's not going to change. Okay, so here I make some changes on that table by I just remove the fixed overhead from this. So this is what I have. Relevant cost. I only keep all the variable cost or keep all the variable cost. Okay. Why? This gives me a good idea on what are the costs if we're gonna produce one ring. Okay. So let's only focus on the cost side. When we analyze this question, okay, this is a fairly complex question. So you have to think about both the cost side and the demand side. So we're going to do the cost side first. Let's assume that whatever you produce, you can sell. Not only you can sell, but also you can sell at the price you want to ask. Okay. Then you wanted to analyze what the cost is. So here we have all the relevant cost you have. If now this is the full cost, if you have to buy everything from scratch, this is how much you expect going to generate for each type of rings. Okay. All right. So now, what I wanted to do, same thing, I will put it in the breakout room and a couple minutes. I wanted to really think about what are the incremental costs. Okay, so this is a different thing. This is a relevant cost, but they're not incremental cost. What is incremental cost? Incremental cost is how much it's gonna be if you start manufacturing now. What are the real costs? Why the incremental cost will be different? Is because for steel, what happened is we already have the inventory, which means we already had a raw material. Therefore, the incremental cost is different for steel than for plastic, because for plastic, everything you have to buy. Okay, so what I want to do, couple minutes, actually, I will only give you 1 or 2 minutes, okay? I wanted to create a table like this for 100 plastic rings, 100 steel rings. What are the incremental costs? And this steel rings, I also want to think about 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, if you are going to use the normal labor, what is the cost going to be? Scenario 2, if you're going to use the summer excess labor, what will be the cost? Okay, so here 1 or 2 minutes, I wanted to just do a very quick calculation. Why we have to do this? This give you an idea on if you're going to continue to produce plastic, steel at different times, say in the summer, in the September, what are the costs? What are the costs? Okay. All right. So I will open the breakout room again, and you go to the breakout room, have a discussion, create the numbers, and then we're going to come back in 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. All right. So welcome back. And here, I just want to really emphasize what we are doing now and how this is going to help us figure out which alternative is better. Okay. So first, we did this relative cost. When we look at a relative cost, we said, hey, if we consider full cost except for the fixed cost, when the company has enough capacity, if you just look at this, for plastic ring, the total cost is 135. For steel ring, total cost is 675. If they both can sell at the same price, which one should you produce? If we only going to produce one, we should always pick the one which has the lowest cost. Okay, so here, remember we have one alternative. It's like we're gonna produce each at a different price, each product in the future and try to sell at a different price. I will say, if we're gonna produce each at the future, trying to sell at a different price, look at the cost difference. I would say probably it's more optimal. We only focus on plastic. If we don't consider any sunk cost, then seems like a more optimal, only focus on plastic. Why? Because the selling price is the same, right? But the cost, if you look at the full cost, the plastic ring is much, much lower than the steel. All right. So let's take a look at the second scenario. What happened if we only produce steel in the summer and sell all of them? Then switch. Okay, so this is one of the alternatives. The second scenario is we're gonna produce steel, but not only in the summer, but also all the way in the fall. We just sell all of them, then switch. Okay, so that's the difference. These are two alternatives. And the difference between these two alternatives is in the summer, you can take advantage of cheap labor, okay? But when the summer is gone, you have to pay a full price. That's the only difference between these two. So this, which one is better? We have to look at this breakdown, okay? Here we're gonna produce and switch, then sell and switch. Remember the key is we all have to switch, which means we're not going to sell steel anymore as soon as we use up what we have, okay? So all of these two alternatives is based on the assumption is we're gonna use up all the inventory, use up all raw materials. Okay, so that's the assumption. As long as we use it up, we're gonna switch. Okay, so same as here. You use up the raw materials and you switch. Okay, these are the alternatives we have to figure out. What are we going to do? Move this a little bit on this side. I'm going to look at the incremental cost. Why I want to look at incremental cost? Because if you're gonna use up whatever you already have, you don't need to buy the material. Okay, so here I'm just gonna copy paste because for plastic, we don't have any inventory and material, so everything is going to be the same for the cost if we want to produce plastic. But look at the steel rings. If we're going to produce in the fall, but we're going to use up all the inventory we have, what happened here is you're going to have zero material. You don't need to buy anything, okay? But the labor, direct labor is still going to be the same, which is here, okay? Direct labor is going to be the same. And this is also going to be the same, okay? Okay, So you can see here, if we just use up what we have in the warehouse, the cost is 353, and compared to the plastic, okay, which is 135. So if the selling price is the same compared to plastic, I would say it's not optimal. Okay, this is not a good decision because in the fall, if you wanted to produce steel, the cost is much higher than the plastic. Yeah. So I would say you shouldn't manufacture any in the fall. Okay, even you have this steel in your warehouse, raw material, you can just get rid of because continue to produce, it's just going to generate a much higher cost than a plastic. But let's think about that. What happened for if you're going to produce in the summer? Okay, so you have this labor savings, which means you only produce in the summer. Only in the summer, okay? So when you do it in the summer, what's going to happen is here, you don't need to pay anything. You already have all the materials in your labor, in your warehouse. What will be the direct labor cost? Okay, so here, I wanted to really read the case carefully, what that says. Okay, it says in the summer, there is a production slack, but the company has a policies, they never lay off people. So they just gonna keep all the workers, but they pay them 70%. Okay, so here, when they pay 70% of the regular wages, when they have nothing else to do, okay? So if they're actually going to produce full time, you have to pay them 100%. So what is the incremental cost if you get the worker, they are doing nothing to produce for you, which you only pay 30% on top of the 70% you're paying. So the incremental cost is actually should be only 30% of whatever you pay during normal times, okay? So here, a lot of students feel it's kind of hard to understand why it's not a 70%, because if you don't produce anything, you have to pay 70%, okay? So you want to switch into full production, you pay 100%. Therefore, the incremental cost for you to produce in the summer is only 30% of the normal cost for the labor. Does that make sense? Okay, so here, this is a variable overhead, okay? If you read the question in the table 1, it said it's allocated based on the direct labor. So if direct labor is reduced, and then overhead allocated should be reduced too. Here is 80 cents on $1 direct labor allocation. So what we do is we just take this number and we multiply it by 80%. Okay, so that's the allocation rate. Okay, so now, as a general manager, look at this. This is the alternative you're gonna have. If the sales price is the same, if you're going to produce 100 rings, plastic is 135. If you produce steel rings in the fall, cost is 353. And look at this, if you produce in the summer, take advantage of this production slack, you have $106, okay? So therefore, what is the best choice? Best choice, I would say, at this point, it seems like it is still more expensive to produce steel than plastic during normal production. However, it makes sense to produce in the summer just to convert the existing raw material into the rings. Okay, so just based on these two, I feel keep production in the summer to use up whatever you have in your warehouse. It will be the best scenario here. Okay, all right. So a lot of times the student will stop here and say, hey, that's it. Seems very reasonable. We're just going to do that, okay? I also want you to think about a little bit more, right? We're doing this cost analysis, but there's something more than cost that we should consider, right? For example, the demand, and also the profit. Yes, it is. If we're going to say switch everything from steel to plastic, how is this going to impact the company itself? Yes, the plastic has a lower cost, but on the other hand, what the plastic ring has, it has a lower demand. What do I mean by lower demand? It has a better quality, but unfortunately, it also lasts much longer, right? So in the past, you can sell 4 steel rings. Now you can only sell 1, right? So here, I also want you to think about what is the equivalent contribution margin if you actually switch all your steel to plastic, okay? Let's just think about this. We're gonna do this again, okay? Just think about the selling price, right? They all sell exactly the same price. And also the cost. So here I want to give a scenario that if we're going to produce both rings in the future, okay? So after you used up all the material you have, you want to continue to produce both. Remember at the beginning, we talked about if you look at the cost, it seems it doesn't make any sense to produce both in the future, right? But let's think about what happened if we consider the profit and the demand. Does it still make sense to produce both in the future? Okay. So here, if you're gonna produce both in the future, after you use up everything you have in the warehouse, you needed to actually consider the full cost, because for after you go beyond the summer, beyond the fall, you needed to actually replace all your raw materials to produce new rings. So we use the full cost. Full cost here for the plastic rings is 135. For the steel rings is 675. Okay. Therefore, normal contribution margin here is just going to be selling price minus the total cost. Okay. All right. So if you look at this, you will be, hey, no brainer. We should switch it to plastic, higher contribution margin. However, think about the demand. The demand is how frequently you think the customer will replace it. Okay, replacement frequency. We know, let's just say hypothetically, they only need 1 ring each time. But for 1 plastic ring, you need to use 4 steel. Okay. Therefore, if you think about the contribution margin for the company, we call this the adjusted, demand adjusted contribution margin. How much will be the contribution margin? Multiplied by that. You'll be like, oh, look at this. Even the cost is higher for steel, but the contribution margin is also much higher because we can sell more. We can sell more, right? So here, this is a real question facing the manager is they know steel with a lower quality compared to plastic, but it comes with a higher contribution margin. Okay. Therefore, the question I should ask is, if we're gonna sell both, how long can I keep doing this? If you look at the market, it's a French market compared to other market. How efficient this market is. You know, maybe different countries, they have a tariff, right? So it's very hard for them to import from one country to another country. It's perfectly fine. You can say, I'm going to sell steel in US and sell plastic in France. So this is another thing you have to consider when you're making decisions. Of course, we're doing a case. So when you write up a case, I want you to put down all the assumptions you have. Okay, you can say, well, based on the cost, I'm thinking about, I'm still gonna sell both, but only sell plastic after I use all the raw materials I have in my warehouse. But on the other hand, if there is a separation between different markets, I don't see any problem of just selling steel in one market, but sell plastic in another. Okay. There's something else you can even do. It's more fun. It's say, if this is the case, we know both rings exist. Is that possible, like some of the students suggested, sell at a different price? Because even market efficient, and even you can sell both rings, right, in a different market. But realistically, how long can you keep doing this? Especially the quality is huge, different, right? You can say, let's do some scenario. Let's just say same thing, but we change the price a little bit. Okay, say steel ring, bad quality. How about we cut the price in half? If we cut the price in half, does it still make sense? You'll be, oh yeah, I said cut the price in half. I'm still making money, right? So you can ask yourself, how long can I cut? How much? How low can I go, right? That's something else you have to think about is what happened to the steel rings. If I decide I'm going to switch from steel to the plastic, what happened to the things I have in the warehouse? For that 15,100 finished rings. If I want to sell, what is the price I can sell? Okay, so when you're doing your case studies, I really want you to do this like a real case scenario. Okay, think about all the scenarios you have. You can come up with a range of the price. Let's go. I just want to go back to what I'm trying to get from you when I grade the case. Is this? I want you to. Okay. When you answer your case, there are a couple of things I really want to know. First, list all the alternatives you can have, and offer solutions. Not only that, but also I wanted to give a number. These are very important. In the past, we have students, when they answer the case, they give an answer is very, how to say, qualitative based. It's very vague. Okay, so here I wanted you to give me not only what is your suggestion, but show me the numbers. What the cost is gonna be, what's the profit gonna be. I wanted to really do this like you are present this to the shareholders. Okay, so what is your solution when you're going to introduce the new product? And if you introduce this product, what do you think the price or the price range will be? And what are your assumptions on the different scenarios, how the net income will switch from one scenario to another? When you're using Excel, it is very easy to do because you can really just copy and paste and change the assumption a little bit. We did a couple of Excel projects before. You can see here a lot of Excel projects that will offer scenario 1, 2, 3 just by changing the assumption a little bit. So I wanted you to do the same thing for this case by offer a solution, but most importantly, show me Excel with all kind of scenarios and how the numbers change based on your solution. Okay. So that's all for today. And like what I said, I'm not trying to give you an absolute answer for this case. Okay. When is it due? I think it's due the end of next Sunday. So you have around 10 days to finish. I wanted to take advantage of these cases. Really think about it yourself as the manager. Okay, all the scenarios you can think of. There's no right or wrong answers. So when I grade your case, I just look at do you offer a reasonable solutions, and did you offer all the assumptions, and also did you actually show numbers? Okay. I wasn't, so this is a very good answer. Say realistically, they are like a really unlimited number of assumptions. So what kind of assumption you want to make? I will say this. Okay, so first, the market competition, right? You need to make assumption. Can both rings sell at a different market in different countries? Okay, that's one of the assumptions you want to make. And also say, if the market is very efficient, how long you can make an assumption here? Do you think the customer will find out? That's one of the assumptions you want to make is about this market efficiency. The second type of assumption you want to make is really the price. Okay, so how efficient the market is. So if your customer find out that there's another product with better quality, how efficient you think it's going to reflect in the price. Okay, just make assumption. You know, sometimes even you have a different product, but the customer may not to realize how long or how large the difference is in the quality of the product. So they may not adjust their price efficiently. They will have some adjustment. Okay, so here that's another assumption you're gonna make. Okay. So whatever the date is, if it's not there, I will reset this today. So my goal is I will set the due date for this case the end of next Sunday. Okay, the end of next Sunday. Any other questions about the case? Of course, there's an alternative. A lot of people ask us, say, how long this case has to be when you write it up. You really don't need a lot. Okay, I'm not very interested in the word writing document. I will prefer you to in Excel. You can say there's a couple of scenarios. You can create for the Excel. You can have multiple worksheets, right? And one worksheet you just write down your solutions. You say that's the alternatives, and then this is my suggestion. Then you want to have a couple of Excel worksheets to support your solution. I prefer Excel, but if you want to have a Word document, copy paste the Excel table, works for me too. In the past, we have students upload both documents that will work.